rehabilitation. It's not the primary focus, though.
Okay, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the second native speaker. I would like to refute several of the arguments made by the first affirmative, and I will do this in a slightly unstandard way. I would like to compare the systems of Missouri and Mississippi when regarding their juvenile systems. I do this mostly because because the two states are actually bordering, and Mississippi uses almost exclusively detention in different facilities such as these, while Missouri uses the famous Missouri system, here are some of the facts about it. In the Mississippi system, it costs $115 per child per cost in Missouri every day to keep these children in such detention centers. In Missouri, it costs $23 for our detention centers. Also, the U.S. Department of Justice has reported truly horrific abuses inside the Mississippi system. These detention facilities do not deter crime, as my opponent said. Most of the criminals who go in there, in fact, in many cases committed minor offenses, so that's prioritizing a retribution system. So they go into these prisons and they become even worse criminals because they're, like my colleague said, learning the trade. And when they leave these prisons, they become the criminals of tomorrow, if you would. Or if they get caught before they turn 18, they return to these detention facilities and cause even more problems because these facilities already have overcrowding, they have infestations, they have multiple problems in their system. The Missouri system, on the other hand, has registered an 8% decrease in juvenile crimes rates since the implementation of its system. This proves that at least some of the criminals stop actually being criminals. So when they leave the system, they become productive members of society, which is also why we want them to be stripped of their criminal record. If they are no longer criminals, then having a criminal record would simply mean that they will not be hired, they will not find jobs. And let me remind you that with the retribution system, they do not find jobs. And inside these detention centers, they are not really taught anything. They leave this environment with sometimes psychological issues. They leave them with bad education, and they have to find a job in this environment, and also with some kind of document that says that they're criminals. It's impossible for them, and this is the reason why they become more and more criminals. And we would also like to state about some other of their factors, like of their reputations, that deterrence that punishment does not necessarily mean any kind of deterrence of any kind, because, well, in most of the states where they mentioned, there is no actual data that children are so afraid of the law that they will not break any crime. There is no such actual evidence. And keeping in mind that most of these juveniles, well, they're more impulsive than adults. They don't think long-term necessarily. Most of their crimes, like we said, are not even hard crimes. So what this will accomplish, putting in these dangerous systems, in the retribution system, it won't accomplish anything. It will simply make the situation worse, which is what we want to avoid with our plan. Our plan makes it possible in the future to have less crime. And by having less crime, we raise the standard of living. We already explained to you most of the details about our system, but they said that it would not work on a national level. That if I believe that no system, rehabilitation system, can work on a national level. Well, this Missouri system seems to have very good results in at least one state, in an entire state, which means that if we implement it in an entire country, it could have even better results, which is what we need to concentrate on. We need to concentrate on the future being a safer society, because if we simply lock up these prisoners in some detention facility, or continue punishing them. If we're punishing them for these crimes in such an effective way, they will no longer be productive members. They will have no chance in society, and they will become criminals. For these reasons, we believe that the Missouri system stands as one of our best solutions towards battling juvenile crime in the United States of America. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm second from the speaker, and first of all, I would like to talk about what the negative side said. What the different side? They talk about the money in society, how some of the systems are cheaper than, how the rehabilitation centers are cheaper than retribution center. Now, that was one question. Do we have actually have to think about the money, how one system is cheaper than another? If we want to protect our children and we want to protect our society, we don't think that money is a goal in a way that we could achieve that, like protection of one society. So the money is not measurement for one community should be safe. Also, they don't have like proof that certain systems are cheaper than others. They didn't give us proof for that. Actually, they're also talking about how they would discount violent crimes, how they're not important for the rehabilitation system. While we think that those crimes are very much important, actually the most important for juvenile justice system, because we have to think about how we should protect our society from dangerous juvenile criminals. Do we want to achieve that by just putting them in rehab, or we want to actually prove that in those cases the deterrence actually works? Like deterrence works and incapacitation works. So we're not just imposing like the safety of one individual, we're imposing the safety of the whole community. We have to think about community. This is a democratic society in which each citizen should be protected, this whole society should be. So if we just our proposal is that we should put one young person in jail, like first incapacitated, and then, if needed by the court or by the system, provide him special needs or help or rehabilitation system. Because we're not implementing that rehabilitation system is bad. We actually want to say that rehabilitation system actually will work in one way, that it can help young individual to develop. But incapacitation should be first step. It should be prioritized over the rehab system. Also, talking about the deterrence. Deterrence actually works in the retribution system. If